God intentioned you to have an eternal, divine, purpose-filled life. So what's the problem? The problem? Satan is real. He is extremely powerful, horribly evil, a sinister liar, and he rules the world we live in. He absolutely hates you, your family, your friends, and all the people you know and love. He wants to take them with him straight to hell. Yeah, Satan's real. Jesus was not delusional. He was not a fool. He didn't know the reality of things. And in the gospel, Jesus mentions Satan and the demons 80 times. And he treats them every time as they are actual beings, significant enemies. Satan was an angel created by God, nowhere near as powerful as God, and yet still very powerful, as were the demons that fell with him. Jesus said in John 8:44, he was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Satan is evil profound. He is described as a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. He is the tempter, the deceiver, the accuser, constantly seeking to lead people as far away from God as possible. So imagine for a little bit this conversation unfolding in heaven when God first creates humanity. God, in his infinite wisdom, speaking to one of his greatest angels, revealing the magnificence of his and potential of his new creation. Have you seen the people I've just created? God asked. Do you see how they are created in my own image? Aren't they wonderful? The angel is awestruck but cautious and replied, yes, I see they're created in your image, and that part of them is indeed wonderful, but they are weak, they are foolish, and they are so easily tempted. You know they're going to fall. You know they are destined for a difficult future because you've given them a free will, just as you've given us, your angels, a free will. But they are so weak. It disgusts me. Why did you create them? God, his eyes gleaming. I created them for that, so that one day they would live in unity with us, I, my Son, and our Holy Spirit. We will exist for eternity in communion and oneness, and it will be grand. But how can that be? The angel questions. Confusion is starting to mar his exquisite features. You know they're going to sin. Are you going to become one with sin? Are you really going to defile yourself? God, you are just. So sin must be paid for. They are not destined to live in communion with you. They are destined to live forever in hell. God's expression turns solemn, and he says, you know, hell was never created for them. Yes, you are correct. They will sin. They will fall short of living in communion with us. But I have a plan. I will send my Son to them as a person, as one of them. They will call him Jesus. He will live among them, sinless, showing them how to live. Then he will die on a horrible cross in their place for their sins. I will rise him from the dead because he will be completely innocent, the perfect sacrifice for their sin. And all who believe in him and trust that he died on their place for their sins will become one with him and one with me. For he will have paid the price for them. The angel's eyes widen in realization. But then what becomes of us? Your angels. They will be your sons and daughters as Jesus is. Are you saying they will rule over us? Yes, Lucifer. You will have the honor of serving them as you have had the honor of serving us. Isn't it a grand plan? Lucifer's expression hardened, and his features became even more marred. No, God, I will not stand for it. I will not be ruled by those weak and disgusting humans that you have created and appear to love so much. Not only will I not stand for it, I know there are many angels, legions of them, who will agree with me and refuse to serve them. I knew that would be your response, as well as the response for others. And it saddens me, but it is your right. By making this choice, you and your legions will, for a time, be cast down to earth, and you'll rule there, making an example of what evil leads to. But eventually, you will all spend eternity in hell, which I created for you. Yeah, I know. I understand what's going to happen. But under no circumstances will we serve those pathetic, disgusting humans. And because every one of them will sin, they will all be in my power. I only need to keep them from believing in the sacrifice your son's going to make. Then they will follow us into hell, and they will spend eternity suffering miserably, as will we, but we will laugh at their suffering. They could have made another choice and didn't, and at least in the midst of hell, I will have some joy in seeing these beings tortured just as I am, not ruling over me, but I over them. You see, Satan actually does hate you, your family, your friends, and every person on this planet. Early church fathers such as Irenaeus, Origen, Augustine, Gregory wrote that Satan and his demons knew when God created us in his image that they were destined to rule over the angels and spend eternity in union with God as his sons and daughters. That's what we were destined to do. And the angels, they could not stand the idea of submitting to us, viewing themselves as grand and superior. Remember, pride comes before the fall. This led them to their rebellion. Isaiah 14:12-15 describes Satan's fall. Now listen to this. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to earth. You who once laid low the nations, you said in your heart, I will ascend to the nations. I will rise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Saphon. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. But you are brought down to the realm of the dead, to the depths of the pit. Paul reminds us in 1 Corinthians 6:3, do you not know we will judge angels? And how much more the things of this life. So not only does Satan hate you, Satan is the ruler of this world. This malevolent being who hates you and hates this world. Jesus called Satan the prince of this world. And Paul writes in 2 Corinthians, the God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. Satan, the God of this age, is doomed to eternal damnation, and he knows it. Revelation says, and the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophets have been thrown, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. But in his hatred, his goal is to take as many of us, you, your family, and your friends, with him as possible. He knows we were created for a much greater destination, that our lives are indeed all eternity. We're meant for adventures filled with purpose, spent in union with God and his Son as his sons and daughters. Satan's distorted our world to make that calling almost impossible to hear. Drowning it out with noise and confusion, he distracts us with temptations that are shallow and self-centered to keep people from turning to Christ. As ruler of this world, Satan works tirelessly to exchange God's truth for his lies, deceiving humanity on a grand scale. Isaiah 5:20 warns, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who substitute darkness for light and light for darkness, who substitute bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Consider Satan's deceptions. God says we are fearfully and wonderfully made in his image. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. Psalm 139:14. Satan's lies convince people they're just evolutionary accidents of nature, soulless, without intrinsic value or purpose. When it comes to purpose and fulfillment, God's truth promises a life of purpose and abundance through Jesus. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I came that they might have life and have it abundantly. John 10:10. Satan's lies tell us that fulfillment comes from material wealth, power, and satisfying personal desires. And think about sex. God designed sex as a sacred union between husbands and wives, uniquely capable of creating eternal souls in God's own image, destined to spend eternity as one with God or in misery and torment. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Genesis 1:28. Satan's lie reduces sex to a casual act of pleasure, devoid of significance or consequence. Look around at the world and see the desperate state it is in. Deaths due to drug overdose have increased 60% from 2018 to 2023, and nearly 1,000% in the last 30 years. Anxiety disorder affects 40 million Americans, and a 2023 study by the National Institute of Mental Health indicates 25% of Americans between the ages of 18 and 29 are being treated for depression. And these are not just statistics. These are people people we all know and love. We are in a crisis. The United States is less happy, more anxious, more depressed, and more addicted than ever before. Social isolation has increased despite digital connectivity. People have fewer real friends and far fewer deep connections. Relationships have moved from meaningful connections that last a lifetime to casual sex, broken homes, and fatherless children, all on the increase. Satan, the father of lies, promises pleasure and delivers despair. And Satan's influence is evident everywhere. It's affecting us Christians too. He handcuffs Christians. He turns our days to chaos filled with worldly noise and busyness and confusion. Reflect on your own life. How hectic are your days? Consider the constant barrage of notifications, advertisements, and social media all competing for your attention and creating relentless noise that drowns out your own thoughts. The average person checks their cell phone 58 times a day. Microsoft recently found that our average attention span is now 8 seconds, which is quite literally less than that of a goldfish. Is it any wonder our days end in exhaustion and confusion? Satan is doing his very best to make sure we cannot hear the calling of God, a calling to divine purpose. And by keeping us overwhelmed and distracted, he prevents us from living out our divine purpose and leading others to Christ. I hope you can see that we are in the midst of a colossal, sinister battle against Satan and his demons for our eternal souls and the souls of everyone we love. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of the dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Every human being traveling on earth is in enemy territory, for Satan rules this world, and every one of us has sinned. It is terrifying and appears hopeless. Yet with God, we are never hopeless. God specializes in turning dire situations into glorious victories. But that is another story.